of the driver who hit the protester.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody messaged some screenshots because he deleted his profile.
Oh my God. All right.
So
Well,
we have an
let's
exclusive here
go.
today.
Yeah.
Did that tag you?
I think so. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Sweet.
All right. All right. Share the link if you can, everybody. I was just telling Cassie we have a little bit of an exclusive here today. Welcome back to the Holler Hour, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 p.m. We're here to holler with you. More importantly, though, we're hoping that you will holler with us. Message us for the link while the show is going on, and you can jump in and holler about anything you want. Agree with us, disagree with us, talk about something that we're not talking about. It's all fine. This is your moment to holler with us. We've been having a few guests a week who jump in, but you guys are still being a little shy about it. So we're trying to coax you out of your shells to holler at us. Message us on Twitter, on Facebook. We definitely want to hear from you. Also, make sure you're following all the hollers. We have a new holler in Harrogate, also Murfreesboro, Memphis, Chattanooga, Cookeville, Knoxville, and the Tri-Cities, and even one in West Virginia. And that's because you guys are so supportive. So thank you all for contributing. And please, if you haven't contributed yet, or you can chip in a few bucks a month, that stuff really, really, really helps. Cassie, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well. I got a new pair of glasses, so there's an update on that.
I was going to say, you're looking pretty
Yeah.
sharp. No
Well,
tape in the
thanks.
middle.
I don't have to.
Yes.
Yeah, no tape. I don't have to worry about them falling off my face while we're live. So that's really nice. And yeah, other than that, I'm doing pretty well. I'm sad today though. This morning, I've got a shout out to my buddy Bob Hemphill. Actually passed away this morning. He was a stalwart community organizer down here in Williamson County. He really was fighting the good fight, and he also was fighting cancer for a long time. So just a shout out to Bob, and may he rest easy, because he was a fantastic human being, and so I've got to give him a shout out this morning.
All right, well, rest in peace, Bob. That actually segues us nicely into the first story of the day, which is the Williamson County seal. Last night, Williamson County voted to remove this Confederate flag off of its seal, which was very good news. I'm going to ask you in a moment, because you watched it, what that was like. Here's the vote right here, in case you know any of these people. Yes means to remove it. So the no's are people that did not want to remove the Confederate flag from the seal. That's Chalfant, Herbert, Hester, Jones, Nations, Rainey, and Sturgeon, just to name and shame them a little bit. And then I also want to give a shout out to Dustin Cochter, who kind of led the charge to make this happen. And this is his quote. This was his tweet. This must now be submitted to the Historical Commission for a waiver. Cassie, what was it like watching this go down last night?
Right. It was interesting. Of course, this whole process has been much longer than I think that it should have to be. Of course, I'm glad that they had community involvement in terms of the task force that was created. But there were, as you just named and shamed, those 7 people that voted against removing the Confederate flag. A couple of them spoke beforehand about their about how upset they were that this was even on the table. Some of them, called out the fact that this will cost so much money to have the seal or to have the flag removed from the seal. Meanwhile,
and Williamson County has no money, right?
No money in Williamson County whatsoever. It's we're really struggling down here. And at the beginning of the meeting, they were talking about the biggest project that Williamson County's ever taken on, which is the new sheriff's office and the courts complex, which is just a massive expenditure. And not to mention the amount of money that Williamson County might lose, or stands to lose, if we keep the Confederate flag on our seal.
That's right. It's very short-sighted to think that having that Confederate flag on our county seal any longer would not cost us events. We've already seen the NCAA speak out about, they're not going to show up anywhere that has a Confederate flag. So, and I know they want to put a whole sports complex in Williamson County, and they talked about NFL training camp coming here. That
Yeah.
wouldn't happen if we had a Confederate flag on our seal. I can guarantee it. We would help make sure that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
It's just a cudgel.
Yeah, I'm just glad they did the right thing, and it's definitely the right thing to do. You know, that symbol does not mean anything good to an entire race and it should not mean anything good to any of us. You know, fighting for the Confederate flag at this point is absurd. You know, I always go back to the fact that my grandparents survived the Holocaust, and if you know, you don't walk around Germany and see Nazi symbols all over the place. They don't have statues. So this is the right thing to do. And hopefully it's just the beginning of a whole host of steps in the right direction. Although I did see today that Lieutenant Governor McNally and Cameron Sexton have now said that there's like an extra step to removing the Grand Wizard bust out of the Capitol. They're trying to make things even harder. So that is not good. Speaking of Republicans that are acting a fool in the legislature, Wade Monday is not one of them, but he is fighting a pretty good fight that I wanted him to tell us about. Wade, what is this and what does it mean to you?
You know, it's a great graphic for one, and evidence of a state senator who is not being transparent with the voters, not being transparent with his patients apparently, and not being transparent with everyone that he is accountable to. So just to give you the background on it, earlier this morning, I hosted a press conference with members of the media and the public, and the problem that we're seeing with Senator Dickerson is he's in the middle of his reelection campaign. Last year, he, as co-owner of Comprehensive Pain Specialists, he and his fellow owners and operators of that company were sued by the Department of Justice and Tennessee, the state of Tennessee. Attorney General Herbert Slattery was on the lawsuit alleging a $25 million fraud for improperly and fraudulently billing Medicare and TennCare.
So just to make sure I have this, a state senator out of Nashville, a Republican state senator named Steve Dickerson, was running a company that committed $25 million worth of Medicare fraud, defrauding taxpayers, was sued by the state. Slattery was on the lawsuit, settled the lawsuit for something like $50 million. His CEO went to federal prison, and now this dude's running again for office. Is that?
That's right. And you know, us, you know, on this end of the political spectrum, we're not waving our arms loudly enough, but this is something that Republicans and conservatives should be waving their arms loudly about, because it's defrauding taxpayers for his part, allegedly $6.5 million. I think it's something like 750 claims that he made. And, you know, to just dig into the nuts and bolts of this, if you're a physician seeing patients and you're getting Medicare reimbursements, you fill out a form, you fill out a claim, you send that to TennCare or Medicare, and they send you money back. Now, in the lawsuit, the co-conspirators, the CEO who is in prison, another individual who is a physician, allegedly billed 2,500, claimed that he treated 2,500 patients during a time when he was out of the country on vacation. So
wow.
Oh my God.
So this is crooked. Why is Dickerson not in prison?
Well, that's a good question. In June of this year, in the midst of a re-election campaign against Mayor Heidi Campbell from Oak Hill, he settled the lawsuit. Everything was just sort of swept under the rug for an undisclosed amount of money. I'd like to know, as a member of the public, as a citizen of resident of Davidson County, I'd like to know what was in that settlement. How much did he pay? Was he guilty of this? Does he deserve the public's trust anymore? I don't think he does. And frankly, you know, there were, I think at one point in the lawsuit, the Department of Justice alleges that they were calling urine sample testing liquid gold because they had created their own lab testing, which they could bill to Medicare at 5 times the market rate. And basically, without providing the test, they would just get a blank check from Medicare or TennCare. And that's something that we want answers to. Because as someone in a position of power, not only that, but someone who is, tasked with the care of people, of residents, people that we care about, family members, is that someone we can trust? So,
well, Steve Dickerson, that's the name that everybody needs to remember. Everybody should reach out to him, ask him to disclose his settlement. Heidi Campbell is who's running against him, and I've heard it's a close race. So, the more people understand and know how crooked this guy is, the better chance we have to put someone in there who isn't. And at the end of the day, no matter what party you belong to, we should want to get people in there who aren't criminals.
Yeah, someone that we can trust. And, there was, I think, a widely circulated tweet that he passed when the fetal heartbeat bill passed in the Tennessee state legislature, of him napping on a couch outside the chambers. He missed that vote, and he said, a great place to take a nap. It's a photo of the ceiling of the state capitol. So, someone who's not actually even doing their job of voting on legislation, yay or nay, on that bill, which we think is atrocious, right? But someone who's not even engaged in their job, and then there's evidence that they're also not doing their medical job. They're just providing false claims to Medicare, allegedly. That's a real problem. I think we want someone with more energy to represent us. Even if they're not representing us well, at least do your job.
Right. Yeah.
Cassie, what do you think about all this?
It's really where the Tennessee GOP's argument about, wanting to crack down on law and order.
Law and order. Yeah. The law and order party. Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys don't seem to have much use for either.
No. I mean, this guy and the company that he was involved in and has stolen more from taxpayers than than a bunch of different types of petty crime combined. So,
right.
When they claim, when they pass these draconian anti-protest bills and just crack down on basically criminalizing poverty, but then let stuff like this fly, it's just it's clearly just an ideology.
It's two separate justice systems, a justice system and an injustice system, and we're all playing by different rules.
And we pay for his legislative salary, and so
right.
He's accountable to us. And I think it's fair to say in this era that no person, not even the president, is above the law. And just because a state senator makes the laws, just because he knows about TennCare law and Medicare law, and just because he settled with the Department of Justice in June of this year, he's not above disclosing this to the public. We want to know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cassie.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that, with him being part of this company and also being a sitting state legislator, and he was named in the lawsuit, et cetera, but it's hard to imagine that he didn't have a pretty massive role in this because, as you said, he does know how things work because of his involvement in the state legislature. And so he had to pay back a massive fine. He's in really deep, and we deserve to know what exactly happened.
Absolutely. Steve Dickerson, show us your settlement. This is ridiculous. Wait, do you have a few minutes to stay on here and so we could talk about a few other things?
Sure, let's talk.
All right. So speaking of somebody else who's not doing their job, Governor Lee has been telling everybody to wear masks, but he himself is not wearing masks. This was him in Franklin County in a tiny boat with Haggerty, Bowling, Desjardins, and Iris Rudder, not wearing a mask. This is 2 days after he went on and gave this impassioned plea at a press conference for everybody to wear masks. What kind of leadership is it to tell people to wear masks, to spend millions of dollars on a mask campaign throughout Tennessee, and then yourself not even wear a mask when you go out to the rural parts of the state? Does he think we're not watching him? Wade, what's going on there?
What kind of leadership is it? I think what's indicative of the GOP, and especially in that picture, it summarizes it all. It's leadership that doesn't understand irony. The fact that you're telling someone to wear a mask and you're not wearing a mask, to decry socialism when you're sitting on a boat on a federally funded lake project from the New Deal, it just defies logic. Some of the messaging behind our public officials and candidates. You see Bill Haggerty there too, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt on a boat, which is just not something you do.
Right. Forget the mask. The boat wear is very suspect.
Yeah, maybe some of those Mitt Romney attacks had some weight to them.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
Right.
no, it's really ridiculous. Lee seems to think that, he can escape the cameras when he goes into rural, like nobody's watching when he goes to rural Tennessee. I'm very much looking forward to his press conference with Phil Williams on Thursday because Phil is on this. He already tweeted about it, and I don't see him letting Lee get away with this one. So we'll be ready to pull the clip as soon as Phil brings it up.
Right. And one other thing about this is that, I know a lot of people want to go on the lake, and a lot of people feel like, they don't have to wear a mask if they're with their families because maybe they've been, in a pretty small circle of individuals. But every one of those individuals has been holding campaign events across the state. It's simple science that you can spread this disease by traveling from community to community. People who you don't know very well could have it. 40 to 45% of infections could be asymptomatic. I don't think that it's responsible of our leaders to be traveling around and spreading this contagion throughout our communities, because even if we can't see the symptoms, it still has devastating effects on a small few. Right. And we need to be more responsible than that.
And it's about setting an example, like why would anybody do the things that he's asking them to do when he's not doing them himself? It's the same thing with Trump. Like, we're in this mess because of exactly this, because people are taking their cues from the top, and the cues that they're putting out are that this isn't that big a deal, that I'm do what I say, not what I do. And it's why we have the worst outbreak in the world and 200,000 people are dead. It's bloody hands, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's such poor leadership. As you said, do as I say, not as I do. He doesn't think that anybody's watching when he goes to rural Tennessee or to the White House, pretty much anywhere. And Wade, back to what you said, it's why we call Bill Haggerty, a COVID super spreader here at the Holler. And Lee is doing the same thing. He's completely, supporting, Haggerty's, just not wearing masks in public, going to public places and going in big groups without wearing a mask. And it has real ramifications. And as you said, Justin, that's why 200,000 people are dead.
There's a guy that died in Chattanooga who was at the Lincoln Day dinner that, or the Hamilton County Lincoln Day Memorial Day dinner, whatever it's called. And he died. And, rumor is that that's where he got it. Haggerty was there. Let's bring in a guy right now who I think is going to offer the other side of this and defend Bill Lee, probably defend his actions, defend Haggerty, Grant Marsh, ladies and gentlemen, always taking up for these Republicans.
Thank
Grant,
you.
how are you, sir?
Justin, makes the months I worked for you all the more work.
Grant, how are you, man? It's good to see you. What are you going to holler about with us today?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to talk about the governor recently announced he intends to seek re-election.
Oh,
which was a very surprising move for me, because I think he's either going to go back on that decision or get primaried. I don't think Bill Lee is going to be the governor after the next election for that office.
I can guarantee you. Yeah, go ahead, Cassie.
I was just going to probably say the same thing. People are going at him from both sides.
Mm-hmm. No question. I already can name, I think, at least one person who is probably definitely going to jump in, and that's Murray County Mayor Andy Ogles, who's one of those be careful what we wish for kind of guys. And then I've also heard Mark Green's name brought up, which, boy, what fun that would be. So, I agree with you that he's going to get primaried. I don't know that it's going to be a step in the right direction, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that either, but, that's why we've got to work really hard in that off year. It's kind of nice that Tennessee has that governor election in the midterm for the president.
Right.
Because, it basically means that we never have, an off year, which is tough on us political operatives, but, it gets the energy to vote. It stays up where other states have that.
Wade, when are you going to be announcing your run for governor?
Oh, I'm going to do it right here, right now. I'm ready.
Exclusive.
There's no shortage of qualified Democrats to fill that office. In the state legislature, in the public, out in the world today, not on a boat, we can find people, and there's plenty of energy. Grant's absolutely right. We need to carry over this energy that we've got.
Throw some names at us, Wade.
There's Jeff Yarborough, there's John Ray Clemens, there's Gloria Johnson, there's Marquita Bradshaw, and although she'll hopefully be in the U.S. Senate. Keita Haynes. There are just a ton of people who I would trust to be a better leader than Governor Bill Lee, because, the first rule of leading is to listen. He never once stepped out on the legislative plaza to listen to protesters who had serious grievances. And whether or not you've already made up your mind about Black Lives Matters and the protests, if you're going to be a leader, you've got to sit down and listen. And I do not believe that he's listened. I do not believe that any of our Republican legislators have listened. And so, to be frank, I think any person could step in out of the public and be a better leader than Bill Lee today.
Couldn't agree more. Todd is asking if any candidates from the previous election may rerun and have support. I don't think Carl Dean will run again, and Fitzhugh just became mayor of Ripley. So I think probably it's going to be somebody new, and a lot of the names that you just threw out are really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I do think the knives are going to be out for Bill Lee from the other side. Here's just one other real quick clip that I wanted to play from his press conference this week. This was him trying and failing to explain why he is using COVID relief funds for police cadet scholarships.
CARES money to fund the 90 scholarships. How is that? I mean, that money is for coronavirus relief.
So the federal government's given us broad flexibility about how it is that we can use dollars, recognizing that law enforcement has been called upon in unusual ways to respond, even in COVID-19. That broad flexibility by the federal government allows us to use those funds.
So he's using COVID relief funds to basically train police. That's quite a stretch, especially in this day and age when, clearly everybody is calling for, frankly, fewer dollars to go towards police, but also there's so many more needs with COVID. There's people unemployed. There's teacher raises that we didn't pay for. There's, kids money to feed poor kids that's going by the wayside because they didn't advertise it. So many other needs. And yet he is going to fund police scholarships when we already have $1 billion rainy day fund. Grant, Wade, help me out here. What's this guy doing?
I mean, meanwhile, they're insisting that poor people be drug tested so they can buy bread for their families. So
right.
The whole approach of no strings attached to federal funding doesn't apply to them. Again, it's do as I say, not as I do.
Right. Cassie, you definitely had some strong feelings about this one. What did you think when you heard that police were getting money from COVID relief funds?
Yeah, I mean, it furthers criminalizing poverty. I mean, the people that are suffering the most from COVID-19 are those that are, working people who can't take off work, who have to go in person to work, and a lot of them don't make as much money as those that are able to work from home, and that disproportionately affects, as I said, poorer people, people of color, and it's a perpetuation of the war on poverty and how the thin blue line is really just trying to keep those people down who are suffering even more in light of COVID, instead of actually allocating that money in ways that would help them long term and help them in this and help us and everybody in this moment, where we could use all the funding going to COVID relief we can get. I mean, we're suffering unbelievably. And so the fact that they're using this money just to perpetuate and propel their ideology and, further cement the status quo is completely on brand, but perpetually disappointing.
Grant, how tone deaf is this?
I just think the governor just gave us the two words that congressional Democrats should take into every budget appropriations meeting for the rest of his term: broad flexibility.
Right.
Let's use that against him. I mean, we can use that term in so many ways to help so many people that I think it's great ammo to use. It's not very small government of him at all.
No.
It's great.
They don't believe in that.
No.
Now.
Yeah, it's definitely the opposite of small government. It's, and they're totally fine with federal dollars when they can use them how they want. They always yell about federal government. They debt shame the federal government. They paint the federal government as the bad guys. Meanwhile, we are one of the most federally dependent states. And, I always say to debt shame the federal government while we get more than most states, it's like debt shaming your parents while they still pay your rent. And people don't realize that how dependent we are on these blue states that we go around vilifying. It's wild. I just wanted to show you guys that one. Another one that I wanted to show you both. And did you guys hear what happened in Johnson City this week where a protester was brutally run over. I thought I would bring that up because I feel like it's not getting enough play here. And, it really should be national news, in my opinion. They've now arrested the guy. Trigger warning for everybody. I'm going to show this, but I want everybody to, look away if you get easily triggered by things like this. This happened in Johnson City this weekend.
Have access to. Oh my God! Billions of other people, and really opens up the door to new ways.
So I don't want to. It loops around twice. I don't need to loop that twice. But brutally ran him over. He's been arrested for aggravated assault. He is a guy that is from North Carolina, and then this is exclusive to the Holler right here, guys. This is a Holler exclusive. We have screenshots from people who knew of this guy before this happened. He has since deleted his Facebook account, but they had screenshots because he was a loudmouth on Facebook. So this is his buddy posting this. It says, hang on, let me move that thing at the bottom. It says, when you thought you hit a dog, but it turns out it was just a looter. That's his buddy. And then this is him commenting beneath that. He says, this is great. And then he went and drove over a protester. So just to flash it back and forth, when you thought you hit a dog, it turns out it was a looter. That's his pal, Peter Franklin, who I'm told is a coworker of his. And then he laughs about this. And then, of course, he goes on and hits a protester. And this is some other comments of his, calling a mask a face diaper. You need to keep your wife under control, keep the muzzle on. So this guy is exactly who you think he might be. Here's a picture of him. He was just charged with aggravated assault in Johnson City, turned himself in, not before deleting all of his Facebook accounts. And, 27 years old, a loudmouth. Nobody seemed surprised. What did you guys think when you saw this?
That he very well could be Times Person of the Year, because that's just sort of indicative of what we've seen this year. Protesters spurred to violence by the calls of a president who has no regard for human life. And a lot of Tennesseans can't imagine being on either side of the steering wheel, being a protester in the streets or being a person running over a protester. But I think every Tennessean that I know, every good and decent human being, would side with the protester rather than the person mowing over the protester. And so we need to elevate more people like that and just get Donald Trump out of office and all of our leaders who are promoting violence.
Completely agree. Yes. And this is not an isolated incident. Protesters have been getting run over throughout the country. This has become like their tactic. There was actually a bill proposed by Matthew Hill in the House that was essentially going to make this legal. Right. You'd just be able to say, oh, he was in the crosswalk. He was, and he's attacking me. They're just looking for any way to limit the liability for things like this. And, what we're told is that these guys were crossing the street. He kind of nudged them. They hit the roof of the car to be like, hey, don't do that. And then he just gunned it. So it seems like he might have gone looking for them. Grant, have you ever been in a situation where something like this happened?
I was at a protest recently on the square in Franklin where things got physical and things got a little bit, out of hand. Nothing like that involving a vehicle. I think this is just, symptomatic of a president that drives a culture of hate and a culture of division. And you can evidence that by we didn't see this under Bush. We didn't see this under Obama. This is something that has been on the rise, not necessarily because Trump is in office, but it's happening under Trump, and he's not, doing anything to curb it at all. This is a president that tweets things like, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that the officers that were shot in Los Angeles, which was horrific, and nobody condones that, but immediately all of the Republican legislators, even here in Tennessee, were speaking up about that, essentially saying that the left owns that. There were like 4 people standing outside the hospital yelling, "We hope they die." Suddenly that becomes emblematic of the entire movement. But when something like this happens, and when you have way more white supremacists killing people, they don't own any of that. They don't talk about it. And this is right here in their backyard. Cassie, do you think aggravated assault feels like a light charge for something like this?
I mean, it's extremely light. And as you were saying earlier about, the bill that Matthew Hill was proposing, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that's something that a lot of folks here in the Tennessee GOP, they support things like that. And it's fascism. I mean, it's something that we need to be pushing back against as strongly as possible. And yeah, I mean, and Grant, as you said, this is something that, I mean, of course, Trump is throwing gasoline on the fire. It's something that he is definitely perpetuating and making a lot worse. But it is a problem that has been growing for a long, long time, and it's something that we just need to be pushing back against full force, because otherwise it's just going to get worse. And when you have when you have the FBI, Homeland Security, and anti-fascists all agreeing on something, which is that terrorism from white supremacists is the worst on the rise problem that we have, looking into the future. When you have those groups all agreeing on something, we've got a serious problem.
Well, and we've been told that they are intentionally minimizing that threat, that Trump has people inside government saying, play up Antifa, play down white supremacists. That is an active strategy going on, and they're intentionally using Antifa to crack down on people that disagree with them. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely not, and you have to view this whole thing in context. They did bounce back over there, though. They went out and marched the next day. This was the cover of the Johnson City Press, but I am pretty surprised that there hasn't been any national coverage of this. I mean, it was so blatant, and it seems like somebody would have picked it up. One other thing I wanted to mention before we get you guys out of here, and it's along these lines also. This was a correctional officer at Bledsoe County Correctional Facility posted this saying, "I like my winter how I like my neighbors, all white." And this is her with her pals at the correctional facility. Yikes. Somebody that knows her that happens to have the same last name as her reached out saying, we're making her look bad. We got it all wrong. I don't really know what we could do to make her look bad. I mean, that's the post. It speaks for itself. And, when you're a correctional facility officer, probably with a lot of people of color under your watch, to be saying things like that makes it's pretty simple to start questioning if you can do your job properly.
Yeah, that's incredibly dangerous. So,
yeah, I mean, it feels like this idea that people are unsympathetic to the causes. That's sort of the overarching theme here between Governor Lee, between the driver, it's racism. And that's what we're dealing with, and we need to be able to name it and call it out. And hopefully the fact that we're all talking about it more, Wade, is at least a start to a better future.
And right, Tennessee, I mean, maybe that was a joke, but I think it really shows her true colors. At bottom line for anyone watching this is that's someone, Tennessee's 49th in voter turnout. That's someone who's selecting our elected representatives.
Yeah, she'll vote.
We've got to cancel that vote out.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do my part to do it. And I hope everyone watching goes out and gets 5 people to cancel out 5 more votes like that.
I just want to say, before I started political journey, I worked at National Lampoon. So I feel I can say that is not a joke.
Yeah.
That is not a joke. Conservatives need to understand what is humor and what isn't. And it may look like a joke to you, but there's always truth in jest. And so when you're willing to talk and joke about something like that, especially in this day and age, you're showing your true colors. And to turn around and say, oh, it's just a joke. Okay, if you want to make jokes like that, you're showing that you don't care about who the butt of a joke is. Grant, what do you think when you see that? Is that funny to you?
Not at all. I mean, simply that should be, and I would hope it is, a fireable offense from a law enforcement agency. Or
I wish that it was.
Yeah,
and she might get promoted.
I mean, which goes back to it definitely should be. In this day and age that we are in now, that has arisen over the past few months, it continues to boggle my mind how people in law enforcement continue to make these choices in posting these jokes or whatever, posting these memes, posting these pictures. We are going to catch you, and you are going to face consequences.
That's right.
I think it really calls into question. Oh, sorry, Grant. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting point, and to that point, I think it really calls into question what the purpose what the true purpose of these institutions are, of prisons, of police. Like who are they really serving? What role are they actually playing in society? Of course, like someone like myself, I'm a white person, so I've benefited from the institution of police my entire life, but has everybody? I think the answer is no. And I think that merits a lot of investigation, and it merits like what type, again, back to the beginning of the conversation, what type of law and order is actually enforced in this country, and who it's actually keeping down and who it's actually benefiting.
Right. The idea that like back the blue and, okay, it's easy to say that. It's easy to say, police are heroes. Like, okay, yes, not all police are bad, although some people might disagree with me. But, to actually put some thought into and introspect about the role of policing and how much we need to spend on it and how much we need to spend on our military. There are limits. There are points where there's diminishing returns, and to not be willing to even have a conversation about it in any direction is willful blindness. And, the Republican Party suffers from that mightily. Speaking of SNL sketches, I want to get you guys out of here with one last SNL sketch. This is one of my favorite sketches of all time, and it's brand new. Here it is.
Now, hundreds have gathered here in front of the Washington County Administration building, calling for the end of a mask mandate, saying they are tired of not living their normal lives.
What does that even mean? I'm not sure what that means.
A passionate call for action Friday morning in St. George. Several police officers on standby as many locals called concerns about coronavirus spikes overblown.
The flu kills more than coronavirus.
Oh, that is sad right there, guys. Yeah, that's sad right there.
Asymptomatic carriers simply do not exist, and they cannot be forced to wear masks anywhere as citizens of the United States.
If we want to wear a mask, that's fine. We can take care of ourselves.
Some rally attendees say they should.
All right, well, you get the idea. That's a rally to stop mask wearing. It's just like, this is what we're dealing with, guys. There are people that don't care about other people.
Yeah.
And that's really the bottom line.
You missed my favorite part where this old lady calls people who wear masks pedophiles.
Oh, did that happen?
Everything. That's their like term of choice now.
Something like that, but yeah.
Hang on, I want to see that.
Wear masks if they have any medical issues or mental health concerns, or if they feel they simply can't breathe.
When George Floyd was saying, "I can't breathe."
Oh my God.
Yeah, you really invoke George Floyd.
I can't breathe.
That'll win us over.
Anyways, but many stated that they believe in all cases masks jeopardize kids' health. Parents are demanding they have the right to decide what to do with their children.
I'll tell you another reason I hate masks. Most child molesters love them.
School administrators responding.
Betty, what does that mean, Betty?
Betty!
Child molesters love masks? I'm not aware of that.
Where's the connection?
As far as I could tell, David Byrd has never worn a mask. So I don't know. I think she needs to check her work there.
What kind of local news station let that quote air?
That's true.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing over there?
I know. Yeah. And Barbara makes a good point. It's just QAnon. And that's another, like, I think Barbara may be referring to the pedophile comment, the child molester comment. Like that's 100% QAnon.
Yes. Everybody's a child molester now. The problem is there's always like a hint of truth to some of these things, like that they latch onto. So, the Republican Speaker of the House for 10 years is a pedophile, so they do exist. They are out there. And now they just decide that everybody's a pedophile. And that's clearly why we're all wearing masks. Well, I will continue to wear my mask. I am not a pedophile. I think you guys probably will also. I appreciate you guys joining us today, Wade and Grant. We're here Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. for the Holler Hour. And, Grant, thanks for jumping in here, man. We got to make sure that we keep the streak alive. And anybody else who wants to jump in, Tuesdays and Thursdays is your time. We will be here, and we will be hollering. Follow all the hollers. Grant, what's your Twitter handle?
Grant March 1963.
That's not when you were born. What happened in 1963?
I was really into Doctor Who when I made that, and Doctor Who 1963.
Okay. Wade is at Wade L. Monday, soon to be announcing his run for governor. At Cass Jacks, I'm at Kanew, and we will see you all on Thursday. Go ahead, Cassie.
I'm so sorry. I just saw, I'm going to just flash it up on the screen real quick. I just wanted to respond to Barbara. This is back to the, just very briefly. Back to the comment about, she says, have you really benefited? I'm 3 times your age, and I've always been afraid of stops by police. I know my vulnerability as a woman in the South. That is such a good point. I should have been a little more clear in what I said. I haven't benefited in any sort of like directly tangible way, but just sort of like as a white person, it helps, in terms of like maintaining the status quo is kind of the point I was making. That's one of the roles that I think the police play in our society. And so that was the benefit I was referring to, but I 100% agree with that. And I know a lot of people, a lot of women who are very afraid of being stopped by police for the exact same reason. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that and acknowledge what you said there. And I agree with you.
Glad you did. All right. Anybody else have any last comments from Barbara they want to address?
Well, SNL season is upon us, so look out for Pete Davidson as the 8-year-old boy anti-masker.
Looking forward to that. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.